Hello, my name is Jakob Gille. I'm a composer and music producer, and I mix my own tracks, but also from time to time I mix for other bands. This time I have a really nice rock or heavy metal track consisting only of drums, bass and guitar, and with the help of the Sonnox Oxford plugins I want to mix this track. First of all, let me show you the track before the processing. And now after the processing. Yes. In this video I want to show you the Oxford drum gate, a really nice frequency dependent drum gate or gate, and you can also of course use it on different material because it's extremely easy and fast to get really nice results with it. Then we have the Transmod. It's like a transient designer, really sharp working transient designer, but really nice, also quite fast to work with. Then we have our Involution plugin. It's like another transient designer, a bit more creative effect, also really interesting. Then we are using on the bass the Oxford Inflator. It's like a saturation plugin, adding harmonies, quite an interesting field in music mixing. Then we have the Oxford Dynamic Equalizer, also quite interesting what we are doing with it here. And lastly, the Oxford reverb on an aux to add some room for all the different elements, as you can hear it in the processed example. It's quite nice to have everything in a room, so it sounds more realistic. So let's start. Okay, so let's start how I show you how I did it with the different plugins. So let's start with the kick of the drums. As you will hear, all the drums have a lot of bleed going on. So this, of course, you would use a gate for, but it's especially easy with the Oxford drum gate to do. So maybe if you have a listen on the kick without the gate. You can clearly hear the bleed going on. So we enable the gate, and right away you will see how fast it is to get rid of these other background noises. So without adjusting anything, it's already doing its magic, so to say. I can choose here the sound I want to process. Kick, because sometimes on the snare there are some ghost notes maybe also going on, and it's better if you telling the tool that you're only processing a kick, and then it's fine. We have here a few different tabs. The decay, I can select the frequency I want to process. So this would be the right one for the kick, and also how long I want to have the resonance and the sustain of the kick going on. I can adjust this with the slider here. I don't need it so high. I can make it a bit deeper. This would be fine. Then we have the leveler. On the kick, it doesn't need it so much because all the peaks look like they are even from a loudness point. But we can still have a look. We can level it a bit, and you will see all these white peaks are now going onto this line, and this should be fine. So bypass it. It's quite. Oh, this is quite nice. Can have a look at the snare. Also a lot of beat going on. So let's have a look at the drum gate. I should choose snare here. We also have a few quieter notes we should be aware of. Start here again. Lower the threshold a bit. But this should be fine, I think. Yes. Look at the decay. The crash is coming a bit through, but it shouldn't be a huge problem. You have a look at the leveler. Can also test the auto set leveler for a moment. Oh, this is quite nice. Okay, and lastly, we have a look at the toms and what we can do to them with the drum gate. Because this is quite interesting. If you have a look here at the beginning, I think they were gated before, as you can hear. But there's still some bleed going on, so maybe we can have a look at the drum gate. Yeah, and now it's gone. So this is quite easy. But I mean, there is some crash or hi-hat also playing when I disable the drum gate. Yeah, did. And I don't want this. If we compare this to the stock gate from Bitwig, you can hear the difference. You can still hear this little tick of the hi-hat, and it's gone with the Oxford drum gate. Yes. Yeah. Well, this is quite nice. Also, if we look at the snare, one can think when we are speaking about leveling the snare, we can also use a compressor to even out these peaks. But of course, it wouldn't be so easy here because we have so much bleed going on that you only will increase the background noises if you're using a compressor like this. Snare. And so right away you can easily hear how the background noise is getting much louder. Of course, the individual snare hits are evened out, but yeah, this wouldn't be sufficient for this case. So the drum gate it's a lot easier to do, of course. So next up we have the trance mod, like a transient designer. We have a look at the kick first again. Oh, sorry. So I increase the ratio, and right away you can hear how the attack, the transient of the kick, is getting much sharper, much louder. Rounding up these edges a bit with the overdrive, and this should be fine. I can bypass it here, and you can hear that the kick now is much softer and, yeah, of course a bit quieter, but lacking a lot of energy. Now it really punches through, and we will need it later in the mix, this sharp kick. We have to look at the snare. It's the same problem here. We don't need a lot. Yeah, it's quite a lot. You do the opposite, yeah. So it's working quite drastically. Okay, that's fine. So this is a huge difference, and only with a few slider moves it was possible. So quite incredible, and also really fast workflow. On the tom we don't use it. So then we have also an interesting part going on with the room mics. You have the overhead and drum room mic. So first the overheads. I would like to make this room sound a bit smaller and a bit more dry. So I can just do this when I decrease the sustain. So this is like a transient designer, but more like a creative approach. You will also see what you can do on the drum rooms with it. So this is quite drastic. Compensate for the loudness difference. Oh, this is quite nice. Then we go to the drum rooms, and we maybe will do like the opposite thing. Because what I can do here with the frequency, I can make that the processing goes only on the lower frequencies. You can see here dry red. So dry is the higher frequencies and red are the lower frequencies. And so like this maybe. Increase the sustain. Oh, this is really nice. So we are getting some deeper frequencies of the kick that were missing in the dry kick sound. Quite incredible. So what we have now, maybe we only hear the drums. Nice. Already sounding not too bad. Okay. Now we move on to the bass for a different thing, of course. I have a bass amp and bass DI going on here. And so let's have a listen on the bass solo. So as you can hear, it's quite subby, sub-bassy, missing some higher harmonies. And we have here a really nice, easy, yeah, like a saturation plugin a bit, with which we can add harmonies. So Our bass don't have higher frequencies, of course. So you don't can EQ, for example, these higher frequencies because you can't EQ what isn't there. But we can add new harmonies with the Oxford inflator. And this is what I want to do here. Adjusting the curve for higher harmonies. And right away you can hear how the bass gets more energy, a bit more snappiness, a bit more grit. If I do the curve the opposite way, you will hear the sound gets a bit darker, and it's also getting a bit more dynamic range. With this curve we are compressing the dynamic range a bit more, and this would be much with more dynamic range, but a bit darker and a bit subtle, more subtle sounding. But this is what we don't want, so put this all the way up, compare it without. So now we have a much stronger bass, so this is really nice. But also with this comes a problem because the bass will get into the way of the kick. So we can use the dynamic EQ for this and the sidechain input. As you can see here on Bitwig, I choose for the sidechain input the kick master. And now I can select this external input here and just do this low shelf. And as you can see clearly, this is the kick input, kick coming in. And every time the kick hits, the bass will get turned down. Can make this a bit more drastic, this a bit more dynamic. Fast attack, because I want to have that it moves instantly when the kick hits. Release is fine. Compared to the AB, together with the kick. Now, it's a bit too much. This should be fine. Yes. Okay. So, also a really interesting plugin, Dynamic EQ. We can have a look on this plugin also if we move on to the guitars, because if we have a listen solo on the guitar. Yeah, especially at this part, you can hear how they are sounding a bit muddy and overwhelming the lower frequencies. Yeah. Especially at the end there. So we have a look at the dynamic EQ for this part again, and I would like to compress these lower middle frequencies and also get some high frequencies in the guitars. So let's have a look at this. Oh, this is really nice. I think I panned these guitars left and right. Yes, I did it a bit. But we can make them even wider if we make this band, this high shelf, only for the side in the stereo field, and this band only for the mid, mid and side. And this is what I can do here if I choose here stereo, and I can here choose just the side side signal, and this only for the mid signal. And you will hear right away how the sound getting a lot wider. have room here for the bass and kick, but still have these important frequencies for the guitar there. Okay. So for the drums, we have also the EQ I want to show you. This is quite an interesting EQ because we have here different types we can choose on. So imagine you have like an Neve 88 or Pultec or a really board, but also maybe a really expensive mastering equalizer. You can all choose here different Q factors with these types and emulate these old, really expensive output gear, but of course without the distortion and noise we don't want. So this is quite nice, and I can show you here. If we have a look at the drums and the problems we are still hearing, you hear resonance in the snare. The kick is missing some bass, and we can also use a high shelf on this, I would say. So we search for the resonance in the snare first. I can enable this band and make a really small Q factor here. Yeah, this should be. Yeah, that's not bad. So I search for this resonance when I increase the volume, and then I just decrease it. So I can also show you here the different types, and you can see what I mean with that. So this is really like a chirurgical Q factor. This one is much broader, and this is more like for mastering, so extremely broad. So you can have this on your disposal for all the different bands here. This is quite nice. We want to have a really small band, so this type 2 would be nice for this. Yes. So this works fine. Then we add this for the kick. So search for this part. Yeah. It's also not bad. A bit sharper, and then we add a high shelf. This should be fine, I think. Heard this before. Compare the different types. Of course too much. The type 2 is really good. Okay, for this kind of processing. So lastly, I will show you the Oxford reverb. I added an effect track here in Bitwig, add effect track, and I put on it the Oxford reverb. So now we can route our material to this reverb, of course, to this would be an aux and different DAWs, and we can also look for different reverb presets. So as you can see here, I have here this nice button 100% red. I can just do it like this, but this would be of course faster because it's an aux. We want 100%, and now we maybe we route firstly the drums to the reverb, and then I will show you what we can do with that. So now we solo the reverb and play through it, and now we route the drums to the reverb. So let's look at some presets. Sorry, that's the wrong plugin for this one. And I found these medium rooms working quite well for this kind of music. This is also not bad. This is quite nice here, because on this one the kick gets a bit. There's a really hard early reflections going on. This would be too much. Okay, in a bigger room. So now we can add also the bass. That's not bad. And the guitars. Make it a bit louder. Compare the rooms. You can also have a look at the room 4 and decrease the reverb time. That's not bad actually. So let's hear it in context. I mute the reverb. So as you can hear, the sound is getting wider and bigger and more realistic sounding, because everything now is playing in the same room, kinda. And this is quite a nice trick to have on your disposal. So let's have a look at the beginning again. You can also think about not routing all the drums, but only the snare and the other stuff, toms, and not the kick so much, because it could be a bit problematic. So like this, solo the drums. I think that would be better. Okay, that would be it. Thank you for watching, and have fun with the Sonnox Oxford plugins.